The café was chosen because it was forgettable. No Mafia boss arranged a meeting somewhere memorable. Memorable places had eyes, and eyes had owners, and owners had loyalties that were never fully confirmed. The Blossom Café on Insadongil was the kind of place that existed between more significant locations, serving good coffee to people who were on their way to somewhere else and needed 20 minutes to pretend they weren't. Kang Dae-Hyun arrived 12 minutes early. He sat at the corner table, always the corner table back to the wall, full sightline to the entrance, and ordered an Americano. He had no intention of drinking and opened a newspaper. He had no intention of reading and became, with the practiced ease of a man who had been performing ordinary for 34 years, the least interesting person in the room. He was not supposed to be here. His brother was supposed to be here. Minyi, 28, charming in the way of people who had been told their entire lives that they were charming and had simply leaned into it until it became true. Minyi, who was supposed to represent the Kang family at this first meeting, this structured introduction, this carefully engineered beginning of an arrangement that would formalize the alliance between the Kang network and the Lee syndicate through the only mechanism both families trusted more than money. Blood, or in this case the appearance of blood. The arrangement was political. The girl, whoever she was, whatever she was studying, however she had come to be positioned as a candidate for this particular function, did not know the full weight of what she was walking into. That was standard. That was always standard. The candidates were told they were being introduced to a family's eligible son through a traditional matchmaking structure. They were not told about the 7,000 kilometers of criminal infrastructure running beneath the politeness. Minyi had been prepared. Minyi had also, 2 days ago, contracted food poisoning at a private dinner that Dae-Hyun was now investigating through channels that had not yet delivered their findings. The illness was convenient. Dae-Hyun did not believe in convenient illnesses, so he had come himself. Not as the Kang heir, that identity was buried under 12 years of operational security, so thorough that his name appeared in no public records of significance. As a businessman. A forgettable, mid-level businessman named Kang Soo who worked in logistics and wore glasses he did not need, and had a haircut designed to communicate harmlessness. He was going to sit across from whoever arrived, assess the situation, and determine whether the arrangement was what it appeared to be or whether Minyi's illness was connected to a larger play. He was not going to feel anything about it. He was very good at not feeling anything. The café door opened at 12:48. She came in the way people came in when they were deciding whether they wanted to be there, not hesitant, exactly, but assessing. She stood at the entrance for 3 seconds and looked at the room the way Dae-Hyun looked at rooms, which was, systematically without performing the looking. She was Nigerian. He had been given a photograph, but photographs were curated versions of people, and this was the uncurated version, taller than he had expected, in a coat slightly too thin for November that she was wearing with the specific indifference of someone who owned one coat and had made peace with the decision. Her hair was natural and pulled back with the efficient practicality of someone whose mornings were already full. She carried a backpack and a book, not a handbag, a backpack and a book. She found the corner table, she found him, she walked over without ceremony, she sat down, she looked at him. "You're early," she said. 12 minutes, he said. "That's either very organized or very anxious," she said. "Which is it?" He held his newspaper. "Organized," he said. She looked at the newspaper, she looked at him, she looked at the newspaper again. "The Americano has been sitting there for 11 minutes, she said. "It's cold. You ordered it and didn't drink it, which means you ordered it to have something to do with your hands while you waited, which means anxious, not organized." She tilted her head slightly. "Or you're performing organized to cover the anxious." He held the newspaper, he looked at her. She looked back with the specific, unhurried attention of someone who was genuinely interested in the answer and was not going to pretend otherwise. He set the newspaper down. "You noticed the coffee," he said. "I notice things," she said. "It's a habit. Expensive habits are hard to break." She flagged the server. "Can I get a flat white, please, and a fresh Americano? This one's gone cold." She looked back at him. "So," she said, "I'm Amina, you already know that. What should I know about you?" He looked at her. He thought about the script he had prepared, the logistics businessman, the mild-mannered background, the carefully constructed, forgettable persona. He thought about the newspaper she had just used to dismantle part of it in under 60 seconds. He thought, she is going to be a problem. "Kang Soo," he said, "I work in logistics," she said. He paused. "Yes," he said, "that's what the file said," she said, "the one the matchmaking coordinator sent." She leaned forward slightly. "Here's the thing about logistics people I've met, they talk about logistics. Constantly, whether you want them to or not, because it's what they think about." She held his gaze. "You haven't mentioned logistics once. You ordered a coffee you didn't drink, you read a newspaper you're not reading, and you've been watching the door every time someone enters." She paused. You're pretending, but you're not convincing anyone. The café was very quiet around them. Dae-Hyun looked at her. She looked back, not challenging, not performing cleverness, just stating what she saw the way you stated facts that seemed relevant. I'm going to ask you something, she said. You're going to ask me something regardless, he said. True, she said. Who are you actually? He held her gaze. He thought about 12 years of operational security. He thought about Min-Yi's convenient illness. He thought about the Lee syndicate and the political weight of this meeting and the 7,000 kilometers of infrastructure beneath the politeness of a café in Insadong. He thought about the way she had looked at the room when she entered, systematically, without performing the looking. He thought she is the most dangerous kind of person. He thought she doesn't know she's dangerous. His phone vibrated. He looked at the screen under the table. A message from the head of his security team, package confirmed. Source traced, not illness, deliberate. The meeting is not what it appears. He looked up. She was watching him read the message. Not obviously, she had looked away toward the window. But she was watching him the way he watched things, peripherally, completely. He set the phone face down. I have to go, he said. She looked at him. Okay, she said, not disappointed, not offended, just receiving the information. The coffee, he started. I'll drink both, she said. It's fine. He stood, he put his coat on. He looked at her for one moment, the specific, involuntary moment of a man cataloguing something he had not planned to catalogue. Amina, he said. Kang Soo, she said. And the way she said the name, with the precise, gentle irony of someone using an alias they had identified, landed somewhere he did not have a prepared response for. He left. He did not look back. He was in his car 3 blocks away, when he realized he had not breathed normally in approximately 11 minutes. She saw through him in under 3 minutes. He left to keep her safe. And now you're going to be here for the next 8,000 words because you need to know if they find their way back to each other. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. Subscribe immediately and stay with me because what happens next changes everything. He watched the security feed from his car. He told himself it was surveillance, operational necessity. He needed to confirm she left the café safely, needed to verify no secondary contact had been arranged, needed to understand whether she was a willing participant in whatever the Lee syndicate was actually planning. She drank both coffees. She read her book for 23 minutes. She left. She walked to the bus stop. She waited 7 minutes. She got on the number 103. He followed the bus through traffic cameras for 4 stops before he told himself to stop. He stopped. He sat in the back of his car and looked at his phone and thought about a woman who noticed cold coffee and held his gaze without flinching and called his alias by name with that precise, gentle irony. He thought, this is a problem. He thought, this is not the problem I came here to solve. He called his head of security. The Lee meeting, he said. What exactly did they arrange? A pause. The candidate, his security head said carefully. She wasn't selected randomly. She was identified 8 months ago through the Kang Foundation scholarship program. Her file was flagged by Madam CEO's office. Dae-Hyun held the phone. She's on scholarship funding through us, he said. Yes, his security head said. She has been for 2 years, she doesn't know the source. He looked at the traffic moving past his window. He thought about a woman in a coat too thin for November carrying a backpack and a book, sitting in a café that had been chosen because it was forgettable, unaware that her university tuition was connected to the same infrastructure that had chosen the café. He thought, she thinks her freedom is free. He thought it isn't, he thought, and she has no idea. Find out everything, he said. About Madam CEO's involvement, about why she was flagged. And about what happens to her if this arrangement moves forward. And the arrangement itself, his security head said. Dae-Hyun watched the traffic. Suspended, he said, until I understand it. He ended the call. He sat in the back of his car. He was not thinking about the arrangement. He was thinking about you're pretending but you're not convincing anyone. He thought, nobody has said that to me in 12 years. He thought, nobody has looked at me long enough to see it. The security footage was from a camera he had not installed. That was the first thing that told him the café had been monitored by someone other than his team. A camera in the ceiling fixture above the corner table, his corner table, the one he always chose, the one the arrangement had presumably specified, that fed to a receiver he found in the supply room behind the kitchen. The receiver was empty. The footage had been transmitted elsewhere. Someone had been watching the meeting. He sat in the café at 7 the next morning before it opened, with his actual security team and the empty receiver, and thought about what it meant that someone had gone to the trouble of knowing he would choose the corner table. It meant they knew his patterns. It meant the meeting had never been about Min-Yi. It meant the girl Amina, with her cold coffee assessment and her precise, gentle irony, had been placed there specifically because someone understood that Dae-Hyun would go in his brother's place, would choose that table and would be recorded doing whatever he did in that meeting. He thought she was bait. He thought not for an alliance, for leverage, he thought, and she has no idea. He called Madam CEO. Madam CEO oversaw the Kang Foundation's scholarship program, publicly, a charitable initiative funding international students at Seoul's top universities. Privately, a monitoring system that maintained visibility over approximately 40 individuals who were adjacent to the family's interests through various vectors. She answered on the first ring. "The bellow file," he said. A pause that lasted 1 second too long. "Foundation's scholarship records are processed through standard. The bellow file," he said again, another pause. "She's a current recipient," Madam CEO said. "Third-year computer science, strong academic record. She was flagged 18 months ago when her research interests began overlapping with what?" he said. "With financial systems analysis," Madam CEO said. "Specifically, cross-border payment routing. Her dissertation proposal was in an area that the council felt required monitoring." He held the phone. He thought about a woman who noticed cold coffee and had studied payment routing. He thought, she's not just brilliant, she's accidentally dangerous. He thought, and someone decided to use that. "Who flagged her for the arrangement?" he said. "That came from the Lee side," Madam CEO said carefully. "They identified her through our scholarship records. They suggested her as a candidate through the standard political marriage channels." "The Lee syndicate had access to our scholarship records," he said. Silence. "Madam CEO," he said. "There may have been a data-sharing arrangement that..." He ended the call. He sat in the empty café. He thought about what it meant that the Lee syndicate had used his own scholarship program to identify a candidate for a political arrangement, and had then arranged for him, not his brother, to attend the meeting under surveillance, so they had footage of the Kang heir meeting this specific young woman. He thought, they're building a file. He thought, on me. He thought, using her. He thought, she has no idea she's being used. He stood up. He thought, I need to fix this without telling her any of it. He thought, and without seeing her again. He thought, because seeing her again is the one thing I cannot do. He saw her again in 48 hours. The Kang Foundation held its annual scholarship reception on the second Thursday of November. Dae-Hyun attended as a board observer, a role that appeared in no official documentation, carried no identifying title, and was entirely unremarkable. He sat in the back row of the reception hall and watched the 43 current scholarship recipients circulate through the space with the specific social energy of people being grateful in a public setting. He had come for one reason: to see whether the surveillance on Amina had been removed. He had ordered it removed 48 hours ago. He needed to verify it was done. She was on the far side of the room talking to a graduate student with the focused, direct quality he had already catalogued as characteristic. She was not performing gratitude, she was having an actual conversation. He watched. Madam CEO appeared at his shoulder. "She's been asked to present her research at the spring symposium," Madam CEO said quietly. "Her dissertation topic, the payment routing analysis." "Did she agree?" he said. "She hasn't responded yet," Madam CEO said. "She's careful about where she shares her work. She told the faculty coordinator she wanted to understand the symposium's funding before she committed." He almost smiled. "Of course she did. The surveillance," he said. "Removed," Madam CEO said. "As instructed, but the Lee side's access has been revoked," he said. "If they pursue it through other channels, I want to know within the hour." Madam CEO nodded. Across the room, Amina said something to the graduate student that made him laugh, not the polite laugh of a social event but the actual kind, sudden and unguarded. She looked slightly pleased with herself. Dae-Hyun looked at the back of his program. He thought, she is not safe here. He thought, she doesn't know she isn't safe. He thought, and I cannot tell her without telling her everything. The reception coordinator approached him. "Mr. Kang," the coordinator said. "The foundation director would like to introduce you to some of the recipients. Would you?" "No," he said. He stood, he left. He was at the door when he heard her voice behind him, not directed at him. She was saying goodbye to someone, her backpack over one shoulder, moving toward the exit. He held the door, she walked through it, she didn't look at him, then she stopped. She turned, she looked at him. "You're the man from the café," she said. He held the door, he held her gaze. He thought, say nothing. He thought, you are a forgettable board observer. She has seen your face once, she cannot be certain. She was certain. "You look different," she said. "The glasses are gone, the haircut is the same." She held his gaze. "You were pretending there too." He said nothing. She studied him for a moment. "Okay," she said, and walked away. He stood at the door and watched her go. He thought, she knows. He thought, she doesn't know what she knows. He thought, both of those things are true and both of them are dangerous. She was in the university library at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday. Dae-Hyun was not following her. He was there because his security lead had identified the library as a location where a Lee syndicate contact had been observed 3 times in the past week. apparently conducting his own surveillance on Amina's research activity. The contact had checked out 2 books adjacent to her dissertation topic. He had been at the terminal beside hers for 40 minutes on Tuesday. Dae-Hyun had come to assess the contact's access. The contact was not there. Amina was. She was at a corner workstation, always corners, he noted. Always with sightlines to the entrance, with 3 books open simultaneously and a laptop covered in notes and a cup of coffee that was, he saw from across the room, still hot. She had learned from their first meeting. He almost smiled. He stayed near the reference section. He identified the Lee contact's usual terminal. He verified it was currently inactive. He turned to leave. "You can sit down," she said. He stopped. He turned. She was looking at him without looking at him, her eyes on her laptop, her attention entirely in his direction. "You've been standing near reference for 4 minutes," she said. "You haven't touched a book. The reference section is behind me, which means you had a direct sightline to my screen." She paused. "Sit down or leave. Hovering is distracting." He considered leaving. He sat down. Not at her terminal, at the one beside it, the one that had been used by the Lee contact, which he wanted to check for residual access logs. She glanced at him once. She went back to her screen. He accessed the terminal. He ran a quiet check on recent login activity. 15 minutes passed. "Payment routing," he said. She looked at him. "Your research," he said. "Cross-border payment routing." "How do you know that?" she said. "The Scholarship Foundation publishes dissertation topics," he said. "It was in the program tonight." She held his gaze. "You were at the reception," she said. "Yes," he said. "And the café," she said. "Yes," he said. "And now here," she said. He held her gaze. "Coincidence," he said. She looked at him. She looked at her screen. She looked back. "3 coincidences," she said, "in 1 week." "Yes," he said. "That's not coincidence," she said. "That's a pattern." He held her gaze. He thought about the Lee contact's access logs. He thought about the dissertation topic that had flagged her in the Foundation's monitoring system. He thought about the surveillance camera in the cafe's ceiling. He thought, "She is building the same picture I am." He thought, "She's just missing the layer underneath." "What are you writing?" he said. She looked at him for a long moment. Then, apparently deciding something, "I'm writing about how money moves in ways that aren't supposed to be visible," she said. About the gap between what payment systems claim to do and what they actually enable. About how significant sums can be routed through legitimate infrastructure so that the routing itself looks like ordinary business. He held her gaze. He thought, "She has described with academic precision the central mechanism of the Kang Foundation's secondary financial operation." He thought, "She does not know she has described it." He thought, "She will figure it out." He thought, "And when she does, she will be in more danger than she currently is." "That's sensitive research," he said. "Good research usually is," she said. "You should be careful about where you present it," he said. She tilted her head. "Is that a warning?" she said. He held her gaze. He thought about the spring symposium and Madame CEO and the Lee syndicate and the surveillance that had been removed but had been replaced with something he hadn't yet identified. He opened his mouth. The library's main door opened. Minyi walked in. Not through chance. Minyi did not do things through chance. He had been briefed on the Lee contact's surveillance activity and had decided, in the way Minyi decided things, that the appropriate response was to arrive and assess and manage. He saw Dae-Hyun. He saw Amina. His face did the thing it did when he received information he had not anticipated and was processing it at speed. A very brief, very controlled moment of recalibration that most people would not notice. Dae-Hyun noticed. Amina noticed. She looked at Minyi. She looked at Dae-Hyun. She looked at Minyi again, and she did the thing she always did, which was look at the person in front of her and immediately begin cataloguing what they were actually doing rather than what they were performing. Minyi smiled, the warm, socially perfect smile of a man who had been told his entire life that he was charming. "Hyung," he said, "brother," to Dae-Hyun. Then smoothly turning to Amina, "I'm sorry to interrupt, I'm Kang Minyi, I was looking for my brother." Amina looked at Dae-Hyun. "Your brother," she said. "Yes," Dae-Hyun said. "So the logistics businessman has a brother," she said. Minyi's smile sharpened almost imperceptibly. "I should go," Dae-Hyun said. He stood. He looked at Amina. She looked at him with the expression she wore when she was cataloguing, complete, unhurried, filing everything for later. "Be careful with your research," he said. "The spring symposium funding, verify the source before you commit." He left. Behind him he heard Minyi say something charming. He heard Amina's response, measured, direct, the voice of someone who was processing new information while appearing to engage with the surface of the conversation. He walked to his car. He thought, "She is already building the picture." He thought, "Minyi will accelerate it in the wrong direction." He thought, "And there is nothing I can do about that without being in the room." He thought, "I cannot be in the room." He sat in his car. He sat there for a long time. He erased it on a Thursday. The file in the Foundation's monitoring system, the one that contained Amina's flagged status, her dissertation topic, her connection to the Lee syndicate's targeting operation. He removed it from every accessible database, every backup server, every cloud archive that the Foundation's monitoring infrastructure reached. He left one version. On a server that only he could access. Not for leverage, not for monitoring, because he needed to understand what had been done to her and what she was walking toward, and whether there was a version of the next several months in which she came out of it without knowing how close she had been to something she could not see. His security lead pulled the Lee contact's full profile. Lee contact's name, Park Sung-min, graduate-level intelligence operative working under academic cover. His actual brief, identify whether Amina's research had progressed to the point of producing usable evidence against the Foundation's financial operations, and if so, either recruit her or neutralize her access before she completed her dissertation. Neutralize her access. Dae-Hyun read that phrase. He read it again. He thought about a woman in a library at 11 p.m. with 3 books open simultaneously and coffee she had made sure was still hot. He thought about what neutralize her access meant in the vocabulary of Park Sung-min's employers. He called his security lead. Park Sung-min, he said, remove him from proximity to Seoul National University, permanently. The Foundation's connection to the Lee side, his security lead started. Remove him, Dae-Hyun said, and the dissertation. If she completes it and submits it through standard academic channels, the research becomes public record. Then make sure she can complete it, Dae-Hyun said. Without interference, whatever she submits is her work, it goes nowhere she doesn't send it. His security lead was quiet for a moment. That will create problems with the council, he said. I know, Dae-Hyun said. They'll see it as protecting a liability. She's not a liability, Dae-Hyun said. She's a student doing research that happens to inconvenience powerful people. That's not the same thing. He ended the call. He sat at his desk. He thought about the fact that he had just spent 40 minutes ensuring the protection of a woman he had met twice, who had seen through his cover identity both times, who was writing a dissertation that could inadvertently expose elements of an operation he was supposed to be protecting. He thought, this is a problem. He thought, this is not the problem I was solving this week. He thought, I do not know how to stop solving it. She was walking home. It was 11:40 p.m. and raining in the specific, committed way Seoul rained in November, not dramatically but thoroughly, the kind of rain that made every surface reflective and every sound slightly muffled and every person on the street aware of their own inadequate coat. Her coat was thin. He knew this because he had seen it 3 times. He was not following her. He was returning from a meeting in the university district and his car was taking the same route she was walking, and he saw her from the window and told his driver to pull over before he had consciously decided to. He got out. She heard the car door and turned. She saw him. She looked at the rain. She looked at him. You again, she said. You're getting wet, he said. I have an umbrella, she said. She did not have an umbrella. She had a backpack she was holding over her head with one hand. That's a backpack, he said. It has the same surface area, she said. He held out the umbrella his driver had handed him when he got out. She looked at it. She did not take it immediately. Why do you keep appearing, she said. Coincidence, he said. You said that last time, she said. It keeps being true, he said. She looked at the umbrella. She looked at him. She took it. They walked. Not together exactly. She was walking home. He was walking beside her in the way of someone who has decided to walk in the same direction, which was not the same as together but was close enough that the distinction felt academic. The man at the library, she said. Min-yi, my brother, he said. He called you Hyung, she said. Older brother, which means you're the elder of the 2 of you. Yes, he said. He's very charming, she said. Yes, he said. You're not, she said. Charming, I mean you're something else. He held her gaze. What, he said. She thought about it. Careful, she said. You're very careful. Everything you say is exactly what you decided to say, nothing extra. She walked. Charming people give you extra. That's what the charm is, the extra. You don't. He thought about 12 years of operational discipline. He thought about conversations where every word was assessed before delivery. He thought, she sees the mechanism. He thought, she doesn't know what it's a mechanism for. They turned a corner. A man was standing at the end of the block. Dae-Hyun saw him before anything else registered, the specific practiced stillness of someone who had positioned themselves rather than arrived. He stopped walking. He took one step to the side, putting himself between Amina and the man. She noticed. What? She started. Keep walking, he said quietly. Don't look at the end of the block. Why? She said. Because looking is a response, he said, and I need him to decide he's not here for us before he decides he is. She was quiet for a moment. She kept walking. The man at the end of the block made his calculation. He turned. He walked away. Amina and Dae-Hyun continued to the next street. She said nothing for half a block. Then, he was watching us. Yes, he said. You saw him before I did, she said. Yes, he said. How? She said. He was quiet. Practice, he said. She held the umbrella. She walked. She said, what do you actually do? He held her gaze. He thought about the Lee syndicate and the surveillance and the foundation and the dissertation and the monitoring system and the file he had erased and the file he had kept. He thought about the truth, which was too large to fit in any sentence he could construct in the time available. He thought about, you're pretending but you're not convincing anyone. Something complicated, he said. She looked at him. She held the umbrella over both of them, or tried to. She was slightly shorter and the angle was imperfect, and rain got onto his left shoulder and she noticed and adjusted without commenting. Are you dangerous? She said. He held her gaze. He thought, yes, he thought not to you. He thought that distinction is not something I can explain right now. Not to you, he said. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then, okay. She handed the umbrella back at her building entrance. Thank you, she said. He held the umbrella. Amina, he said. She looked at him. The spring symposium, he said. Don't commit to it yet. Verify the funding source of the organizing committee before you say yes. She held his gaze. You keep warning me about specific things, she said, without explaining why. Yes, he said. Why? She said. He held her gaze. He thought about everything he could not say. He thought about everything she would not believe yet. He thought about the man at the end of the block who had decided he was not there for them. Because the things I'm warning you about are real, he said, and because I'd rather you were cautious and didn't know why than informed and in danger. She looked at him for a long moment. That's frustrating, she said. I know, he said. She went inside. He stood at the entrance with the umbrella. He thought, one day I will be able to tell her everything. He thought, I don't know if that day comes before or after it stops mattering. They were on the rooftop of the foundation building, not by design. By the specific awkward physics of two people who had both arrived at the same building for different reasons. She was there for a foundation scholarship review meeting. He was there to terminate Madam CEO's secondary reporting line to the Lee syndicate, and had taken the same elevator and gotten off at the same wrong floor. The rooftop access door was unlocked. They had both pushed through it automatically, the way you push through unlocked doors. Now they were standing on a rooftop in December with Seoul spread out below them in its cold, glittering abundance. She looked at the city. He looked at the city. How many times, she said, do you think two people can accidentally end up in the same place before the universe is making a point? The universe doesn't make points, he said. Patterns emerge from structure. And what's the structure here? She said. He held the railing. He thought about scholarships and syndicate targeting and erased files, and a dissertation about payment routing that had accidentally described the mechanism of an empire. He thought about a man at the end of a block who had done his calculation. He thought about Min-Yi, who had visited her twice in the week since the library, who was doing the thing he did, the charming, subtle, careful thing he did when he had identified something he wanted. He thought, she is being orbited by the wrong people for the wrong reasons, and she is too perceptive not to eventually understand this, and when she does, the understanding will break something. He thought, I can prevent the breaking, but only by telling her the truth. He thought, the truth is dangerous. He thought, so is not telling it. Amina, he said. She turned. He looked at her. He thought, say it, tell her. Tell her about the scholarship and the monitoring and the Lee syndicate, and the reason she was brought to that café and what her research actually touches, and why the man at the end of the block was standing there, and why you have been in every room she has been in for 6 weeks. He thought, tell her you came to a café for your brother and stayed because of her. He opened his mouth. From 3 floors below, a sound, not gunfire, something adjacent to it. Something that registered in his nervous system as threat before his mind, identified it as a car backfiring in the street below. A sound that in any other context would be nothing and in his context was never nothing. He moved. His hand was at her shoulder, pulling her back from the railing before the sound had finished. She let herself be moved. He registered this, the specific quality of her response, that she did not resist the movement but also did not require it, that she had already stepped back from the railing on her own while he was moving. They stood at the door. The sound did not repeat. He assessed. He let go of her shoulder. She looked at his hand. She looked at him. You moved very fast, she said. Yes, he said. Before I did, she said. Yes, he said. You expected it, she said. He held her gaze. I expect things, he said. She held his gaze. She said, who are you? Not for the first time, not with accusation, with the specific, serious quality of someone who has been assembling a picture for weeks and is now holding up the parts that don't fit the frame. He looked at her. He thought, tell her. He thought, not yet. He thought, not here, not like this. Not with her scholarship file active and the Lee syndicate's interests still live and Min-Yi circling and the symposium question unresolved. He thought, when she knows the full picture, she needs to be safe enough to decide what to do with it. Someone who is trying to make sure you can finish your degree without interference, he said. She held his gaze. Why, she said. Because you're working on something important, he said. And important work deserves to be done without. His phone rang. He looked at it, his security lead. He looked at Amina. I have to take this, he said. She looked at the phone, she looked at him. She stepped through the rooftop door and went inside without another word. He answered the phone. Minyi, his security lead said. He's been to see Madam Seo. He knows you've been meeting her informally. He's asking questions about the scholarship recipient files. Dae-Hyun held the phone. He thought, Minyi is building his own picture. He thought, and his picture has her in it. He thought, for the wrong reasons. Minyi took her for coffee on a Tuesday. Dae-Hyun found out from the café's security footage, not because he had installed surveillance, but because the café happened to be inside a building where the foundation maintained a business account, and the building's management system had cameras that his security team monitored. He watched 7 minutes of footage. Minyi was being Minyi, warm, attentive, asking questions that sounded like interest and were actually inventory. He was learning her. The way she talked about her research, her family, her plans. The way her face moved when she was engaged versus when she was performing engagement. He was very good at reading people, not as good as she was. She was watching him the same way he was watching her. Dae-Hyun could see it in the footage, the same peripheral, systematic attention she brought to every room. She was taking inventory too, she was just doing it more quietly. Minyi said something that made her laugh. She had a good laugh, the actual kind, not the social kind. Dae-Hyun looked away from the footage. He thought, Minyi is going to tell her the partial truth. He thought, not enough truth to be honest. Enough to look honest. Enough to position himself as the reliable one. He thought, and I have given her nothing to compare it against except warnings without explanations and 6 weeks of coincidences I refuse to explain. He thought, she is going to choose the partial truth over the silence. He thought, and she is going to be wrong when she does. He thought, and there is nothing I can do about that yet. He closed the footage. He called his security lead. The symposium organizing committee, he said. I need a full financial breakdown of the funding sources. Today. Madam Seo, his security lead said. Her reporting line to the Lee side, he said. Is it active? She re-established it 6 days ago, his security lead said. New channel, she thinks we don't know. Does she know about the informal meetings? He said. Yes, his security lead said. Dae-Hyun held the phone. He thought, Madam Seo has told the Lee side I've been near Amina. He thought, the Lee side is now using this. He thought, Minyi may be part of what they're using. He thought, or Minyi may simply want what he wants and the Lee side is using that. He thought, either way the picture is getting worse. He thought, and she still doesn't know she's in it. She found it on a Wednesday, not through investigation, through the specific, accidental competence of someone who was doing legitimate research and happened to pull a thread that connected to something she wasn't looking for. She was tracing payment routing structures through a public financial database. She had been doing this for months as part of her dissertation. She had developed, without knowing it, the instinct of someone who understood how money moved through legitimate infrastructure. She found the Kang Foundation, not as a target, as a node in a payment routing chain she was analyzing. A foundation that appeared in multiple transaction records as an intermediary recipient for funds that subsequently moved to scholarship disbursements. She looked at the foundation's name. She looked at her scholarship documentation. She looked at the foundation's name again. She sat very still. She thought about 3 months of tuition she had not questioned because the scholarship was institutional and institutional scholarships did not require the same scrutiny as private funding, and she had been too busy keeping her academic standing to look closely at where the money actually came from. She thought about a logistics businessman who kept appearing. She thought about a charitable foundation board meeting she had attended. She thought about a man at the end of a block who had been standing still. She thought, the scholarship is from them. She thought, I have been funded by them for 2 years. She thought, and they didn't tell me. She thought, and he didn't tell me. She called the scholarship coordination office. The coordinator confirmed, yes, the Kang Foundation was the funding entity for her scholarship. Had she not received the documentation? It was in the original agreement. She had received the documentation. She had not read every line of it because she had been exhausted and grateful and had assumed the institutional pathway was standard. She ended the call. She sat at her desk for a long time. She thought about, you're working on something important and important work deserves to be done without interference. She thought, he knew, he's known the whole time, and he said nothing. She thought every time he appeared, the café, the reception, the library, the rain, the rooftop, he knew. She thought, and he kept telling me to be careful without telling me why. She thought, without telling me it was because of him. She picked up her phone. She did not have his number. She had never needed it because he had always simply appeared. She thought, that should have told me something. She thought, everything should have told me something. She thought about Minyi, who had given her his number on the second visit, who had been warm and direct and had told her about the foundation's work with genuine seeming pride. She called Minyi. He answered warmly. She said, "Tell me about the Kang Foundation." A pause, then, "Of course, what would you like to know?" She thought about what she wanted to know. She thought, all of it, she thought, and none of what he's about to tell me is all of it. She confronted Dae-Hyun outside the foundation building on a Thursday. She had waited. She had spent 12 hours building what she knew into a shape she could bring to him directly. She had not called Minyi back after the initial conversation. She had gone to the foundation building at the time she had learned, through the scholarship coordinator, that a board observer typically arrived. She stood outside. He arrived. He saw her. His face did the thing it did, the infinitesimal, controlled recalibration of someone receiving information they had expected and had still not fully prepared for. He stopped walking. She said, "The scholarship." "Yes," he said. "You knew," she said. "Yes," he said. "The entire time," she said. "Yes," he said. "Every warning," she said. "Every time you told me to verify a funding source, you were warning me about yourself." He held her gaze. He did not look away. He did not explain. She looked at him. She thought about the umbrella in the rain. She thought about the rooftop and the open mouth and the phone that had rung at the exact wrong moment. She thought about every time he had been there when he shouldn't have been, and the specific quality of his presence, not intrusive, not controlling, but positioned. Always positioned between her and the thing she couldn't see. "Why didn't you tell me?" she said. He was quiet for a long moment. "Because," he said, "you would have done exactly what you're doing now, before you had the full picture, before you understood what you were standing in." "Then tell me the full picture," she said. He held her gaze. He opened his mouth. "The foundation funds 37 scholarship recipients," he said. "Your research intersects with financial structures that are connected to the foundation in ways that are complicated. There are people who would prefer your research didn't reach its conclusions. I have been making sure they don't interfere with it." He paused. "That is true and incomplete." "What's the part you're not saying?" she said. He was quiet. "The man from the café," she said. "The original meeting. I was a scholarship recipient being brought to a meeting with a foundation-connected family. That's not coincidence, that's architecture." He held her gaze. He did not deny it. She looked at him. She thought about every piece of the picture she had assembled. She thought he was supposed to be at that meeting for a reason. She thought he stayed for a different one. She thought, and he has been managing the collision of those two reasons ever since. "Minyi told me the foundation is looking to strengthen its relationship with scholarship recipients," she said. "He said it's about building community between the foundation and the people it supports." Dae-Hyun held her gaze. Something moved in his face. "He said that," Dae-Hyun said. "Yes," she said. He was quiet. She looked at him. She thought he doesn't like that. She thought he doesn't like that specifically. She thought there is something about Minyi and the foundation and me that he is not telling me. "Amina," he said. "Tell me," she said. He looked at the building entrance. He looked at her. He said, "I need more time." She looked at him. "You keep asking for time," she said, "and every time you ask, something else happens that I find out about afterward." She held his gaze. "I'm going to need more than time. I'm going to need something true." He held her gaze. He said, "I know." "Then give me something," she said. He was quiet for a long moment. "Then, the café, I was not supposed to be there. My brother was, and I went instead because I thought the meeting was part of something dangerous. And I was right about the danger and wrong about almost everything else." She held his gaze. She thought about 3 months. She thought almost everything else. "What were you wrong about?" she said. He held her gaze. He did not answer. His phone rang. She looked at the phone. She looked at him. "Of course," she said. She walked away. He answered the phone. His security lead, Minyi. "He's filed a formal succession notification with the council. He's positioned as primary heir. And he's named the scholarship recipient program as part of his community engagement initiative." Dae-Hyun held the phone. He thought he named the scholarship recipients. He thought he named her. He thought publicly in a council document. He thought, which means the Lee Syndicate has now seen her name in a political context for the second time. He thought, and this time they didn't put it there. The announcement came through the foundation's official communications channel on a Friday. Minyi had been formally positioned as the Kang heir's public-facing successor. The announcement included a reference to his community engagement vision, which included deepening the foundation's relationship with its scholarship recipients as future partners in the foundation's social development work. The language was careful and institutional and publicly unimpeachable. It was also, read through the correct lens, a formal statement to the Lee Syndicate that Kang Minyi was available for the political alliance arrangement that had been suspended after Dae-Hyun's attendance at the café. Dae-Hyun read it on his phone at 6 a.m. He called Minyi. Minyi answered. "The announcement," Dae-Hyun said. "Necessary," Minyi said. "You suspended the arrangement. Someone had to move it forward." The scholarship recipient's reference, Dae-Hyun said. Community engagement, Min-yi said. It's in the foundation's mandate. Min-yi, Dae-Hyun said. A pause. She's interesting, Min-yi said. Her research is genuinely impressive and she's, another pause, she's not afraid of things. No, Dae-Hyun said. You noticed, Min-yi said. Dae-Hyun held the phone. The arrangement, he said, the Lee Alliance. If you move forward with it through the community engagement framework, she'd be positioned as part of the foundation's public face, Min-yi said. Legitimate, visible, protected. Protected by what? Dae-Hyun said. By association, Min-yi said. With me, with the family. Dae-Hyun held the phone. He thinks this is helping her. He thought he might even believe that. He thought he also wants what he wants. He thought, and he has just put her name into the political structure formally. He thought, which means she is no longer adjacent to the danger, she is now inside it. He ended the call. He thought about Amina in a library at 11 p.m. with 3 books open. He thought about the things I'm warning you about are real. He thought the thing I should have warned her about was my brother. The Han Empire's biannual strategic summit was held at the Ara Tower. 83rd floor, floor-to-ceiling glass. Seoul 40 stories below in every direction. A room full of people who had built their entire lives around the understanding that power was not a result of what you displayed, but what you controlled. Amina was there because Min-yi had invited her as part of the Foundation's community engagement presentation, a 15-minute slot in which she was supposed to present her research as an example of the Foundation's investment in academic excellence. She had not been told what the summit was. She had been told it was a Foundation stakeholders meeting. Dae-Hyun was not supposed to be there. He arrived anyway. He arrived because his security lead had told him that the Lee syndicate's representative was present, that the political alliance documentation was on the agenda, that Min-yi had requested a formal council approval for the engagement framework that included the scholarship recipient involvement, that Amina was presenting her research to a room of people who had flagged her research as a liability 6 months ago. He arrived because he had made every calculation available to him and all of them came out the same way. He took the elevator to the 83rd floor. The doors opened. The room turned. Not dramatically, no announcements, no ceremony. Just the specific, involuntary reorientation of a room full of people whose professional instincts were finely calibrated enough to register the arrival of the highest authority in the space before any formal identification was made. Min-yi was at the front of the room. He saw Dae-Hyun. His face did the recalibration. Amina was beside Min-yi. She looked at the door. She looked at Dae-Hyun. She did what she always did, she catalogued. He walked through the room. He walked past the council members, past the Lee representative, past the 3 board members who had been feeding information to the Lee side for the past 14 months. He stopped at the front of the room. He looked at the engagement framework document on the table. He looked at Min-yi. He looked at Amina. He said, I need to speak. The room did not argue with this. He turned to face it. He said this summit was convened to formalize a political alliance between the Kang network and the Lee syndicate through a community engagement framework. He held the room. I'm ending the alliance. The room reacted not in chaos but in the controlled, significant way of powerful people receiving information that requires immediate reassessment. The Lee representative stood. Dae-Hyun looked at him. The representative sat down. The engagement framework, Dae-Hyun said, was designed to position an individual as a symbolic asset for the alliance. That individual is not a political asset. She is a scholarship recipient conducting legitimate academic research that is not available for institutional appropriation. He held the room. Her research is her own. Her presence here was obtained through misrepresentation. Both of those things end today. He looked at Madam CEO. The secondary reporting line to the Lee side, he said, will be the subject of a formal internal review. Madam CEO will be placed on administrative suspension pending that review. Madam CEO did not speak. He looked at Min-yi. Min-yi held his gaze. The succession notification filed on Friday, he said. Premature, my decision about succession is mine to make. Min-yi looked at Amina. Min-yi looked at Dae-Hyun. He said, you were at the café. Yes, Dae-Hyun said. You've been protecting her, Min-yi said. Yes, Dae-Hyun said. For 6 weeks, Min-yi said. Yes, Dae-Hyun said. The room was very quiet. Min-yi looked at the table. He nodded. Not defeat, something more complicated. The expression of a man who has realized he was building something in a space that was already occupied and who had enough self-awareness to recognize when the occupation predated him. Dae-Hyun turned. He turned to Amina. She was looking at him. She had the expression she wore when she was cataloguing, complete, unhurried, filing everything. She said, the café. Yes, he said, you weren't supposed to be there, she said, your brother was. Yes, he said, you went instead, she said, because you thought it was dangerous. Yes, he said. And then you stayed, she said. He held her gaze. He thought about the cold coffee. He thought about you're pretending but you're not convincing anyone. He thought about 12 years of operational discipline and what it felt like when something walked through it like it wasn't there. He said, I didn't fall in love with you that day. The room was very quiet. He said, I recognized you. She held his gaze. She thought about 3 months. She thought about every warning she had received without explanation. She thought about an umbrella in November rain. She thought about a rooftop and an open mouth and a phone that had rung. She thought about the specific quality of being watched over by someone who refused to announce it. She thought about what it meant to be recognized, not catalogued, not targeted, not positioned. Recognized. The way you recognize something true the first time you encountered it. She thought, he has been telling me the truth the entire time. She thought, I just couldn't hear it through everything else. She said, you could have told me. Not yet, he said, not safely. And now, she said. He held her gaze. He said, now you know what you're standing in, now you can choose. She held his gaze. She thought about payment routing and scholarship documentation and a woman who had spent 3 months assembling a picture she hadn't been given enough pieces for. She thought, he gave me every piece he could. She thought, he protected the ones he couldn't give me yet. She said, you burned the contract. Yes, he said, the alliance, she said, the council, the succession. Yes, he said, that's going to create problems, she said. Yes, he said, for you, she said. Yes, he said. She looked at the room. She looked at the window. She looked at Seoul 40 stories below, enormous and alive and entirely indifferent to the 83rd floor and what had just happened in it. She looked at him. She said, then we should probably figure out what comes next. He held her gaze. He thought, there it is. He thought, 3 months, 6 weeks of being careful and controlled and choosing silence. He thought, and she figured it out anyway. He thought, of course she did. He thought, she always notices the cold coffee. The summit's aftermath was managed. Not cleanly. Nothing involving the dismantling of a political alliance ever resolved cleanly. There were legal processes and council negotiations, and a very difficult conversation with the Lee syndicate's representative that Dae-Hyun conducted alone, and that lasted 4 hours, and that he did not tell Amina about, because some conversations were his to have and not hers to carry. She finished her dissertation. She submitted it through standard academic channels as she had always intended. It was reviewed, approved, and published. Several of its findings were subsequently cited in a government financial systems review that had nothing to do with her. She graduated in the spring. He was in the audience. Not obviously, toward the back in the section where parents sat who preferred not to be photographed. She had not asked him to come. She had not needed to. He had understood, with the specific understanding of a man who had spent 3 months paying very close attention, that this was something she would want witnessed. She found him afterward. She looked at him in the bright spring light outside the ceremony hall. She said, you're here. He said, yes. She said, 3 months ago you were a logistics businessman who drank cold coffee. He said, I didn't drink the coffee. She almost smiled. No, she said, you didn't. She held his gaze. She said, start somewhere honest. He thought about 12 years of operational discipline. He thought about what it felt like when something walked through it like it wasn't there. He said, I recognized you. She said, I know. She said, I recognized you too. She said, it just took me longer to say so. Seoul continued around them, the spring light, the ceremony noise, the specific ordinary miracle of a city full of people who had no idea what had happened on the 83rd floor of the Ara Tower 3 months ago and were simply beautifully getting on with their lives. He held her gaze. She held his. That was enough. For now, that was everything. One recognition that took 3 months and a political summit to say out loud. If this story lived in you, if every almost moment, every interrupted confession, every warning without explanation made you want to scream, you already know what to do. Like this video immediately. Subscribe right now. Drop your city in the comments, where are you watching from, and tell me which moment got you hardest, the cold coffee, the rain, the rooftop, or I recognized you. Tell me everything. New story next week. Same promise, impossible to stop. I'll see you there.